Okay, good evening everyone. Nice to see you all. Really good turnout. And the reason I'm using a mic is that we're going to film this evening because we realise that not every parent or carer can make it to these kind of events. So we're going to make an effort to film these kinds of things so those who can't make it will be able to pick it up on the website. So forgive me, I don't normally use a mic, but I'll use one this evening. It's really great to see you. It's a really crucial moment that we've reached, and it is early, I do realise that, but there's still a few weeks ahead of discussion and presentations and booklets to give out and lots of talking. We've also got a parent evening coming up and an opportunity for you to talk to staff in this very hall in the next couple of weeks, so that will help hopefully as well. So as a whole timeline, we did send you a couple of emails in the last week to give you some information, and we'll repeat that information as well this evening. There'll be more information coming over the next couple of days, and we'll allude to that. And these slides will also make available on the website, so you can look at those at your leisure as well. There's an awful lot to go through. I'm very happy to take questions as we go along if you prefer, but there's an opportunity at the end, and also my colleagues Margaret Cumming, who's one of the deputies, and Joanne Allen from Skills Development Scotland will also be around at the end of the session, so they'll be here to answer questions if you want a one-to-one session, but we can take some questions from the floor as well that may be shareable amongst the audience. So we'll crack on. So some really obvious statements to make really. S4 is a really critical year for focusing on subject choices, and what we've had now up to now has been what we call a broad general education. So this is a really it's a focus year coming up next year, when you start to think not just about next year, but you're actually thinking, I hope, beyond next year. You're starting to think about fifth year, you're starting to think about sixth year, you're even maybe starting to think about some potential career choices. That won't apply to everybody, but it will apply to some. And we don't expect that it will apply to everybody, but one or two in the audience will be thinking about future careers, and therefore it's quite important, really important, that these choices are correct in terms of you moving forward. But the beauty of the Scottish system is that you've got 3 years of exams coming up, so you've got potential to change your mind and move around in fifth and sixth year and focus on different things beyond fourth year. So all is not lost if you don't make those choices correctly this year. We've started the process back in S2. If you remember, there was some specialisation happening then. Young people chose subjects that they were more interested in for S3, which they're now undertaking, and they're sort of 12 15 weeks in. But next year we narrow it quite considerably. So up to now, you've been undertaking, young people have been undertaking what we call a broad general education. And the idea is that young people are studying subjects with breadth and depth across the first three years of secondary education. That's the idea. So we're not talking about qualifications yet, we're not talking about national certification in those first 3 years. We're talking about trying to appreciate what is out there, what kind of different subjects there are, and that's spread across the first 3 years that young people are at school. So I'm not asking them to completely narrow their choices down before that. So this is we're starting the process now of narrowing the choices down to around 6, or to 6. So what young people have to do, you don't have 6 choices because you have to continue with maths and English. That's a given. So maths and English are 2 of your choices, and then you have to choose. Young people have to choose 4 courses to go alongside those other 2. So you have 6 subjects that you are choosing, and we're very carefully wording this. You don't have to necessarily continue with the courses that you're doing. It may be that you're doing a social subject like history, and you're thinking maybe that you want to do geography. That is possible. It's more difficult because you've obviously in 3rd year been studying a particular social subject up to possibly up to 4th level, and that's quite a high level. If you change, then you've got a bit of catching up to do. But it's not impossible. We don't shut the door, and that's the whole point of the broad general education, that we don't shut the door on anything really. There are opportunities to revisit subjects that perhaps were left behind in S2. You won't be able to read that, but just to illustrate, you can see from top to bottom that there is a narrowing going on right from S1, S2, and you can see how many different subjects young people choose have to experience in S1 and S2. There was a degree of specialisation happening in S3. We also introduced at the far right-hand side masterclasses. Young people are experiencing those for either half a year or a whole year, and they're leading to a qualification like Duke of Edinburgh, for example. And then next year, there are 6 subjects to follow, and then potentially in 5th and 6th year, up to another 5 in each year, potentially. Normally in 5th year, it's 5 subjects, and normally in 6th year, anything between 3 and 5, but that depends on the level that you're going for. So the senior phase, like I say, you're talking 6 subjects in S4, and then out of those 6, or not necessarily out of those 6, again, it could be another subject related to those you would study to higher in S5 and potentially advanced higher in S6, but there's lots of different paths. What you should have received this morning, all the young people here should have received the course choice sheet. If you didn't, we have plenty of copies, and you can pick one up this evening, so we have those available for you. You can see that it's laid out on the left-hand side. You put down the subjects that you're currently studying, and on the right-hand side you put down the subjects that you would like to study, and that's really important. One of the things we have to say right from the outset is that we can't guarantee that all subjects will run. Some subjects may not run next year, and that will be down to uptake and staffing, and those 2 factors are really critical. It should be the case that we can find all of your choices. Last year, I think it was 98% satisfaction in terms of the subjects that were chosen, but there inevitably are choices that can't necessarily be accommodated, and some subjects, some courses won't run if we're down to maybe only 4 or 5 people wanting to do that particular course. We do open it out. It is a free choice, so you can pick the 4 subjects that you want to do, but we can't guarantee that they will run. They are likely to, but we have to put that caveat in right from the beginning. This is the array of subjects that we have. Some have changed their names slightly, so they're not in columns, we're just showing you them in curricular areas. So we begin the process as an open process, so you choose, you have a free choice about what you choose, and then it's down to the timetabler to arrange them into columns. So from the left to the right, you've got art, design, drama. You've got 2 types of music. You've got music with performing and music with technology, which are 2 distinctly different courses. What we have done, we've produced a booklet which will tell you a little bit more about these subjects. But if there is a subject that you're not sure about, it's really young people, you need to ask. If you've never seen music technology, you're not sure what music technology is, but you think you like the sound of it, you need to talk to the people who really know a lot about it in the departments before you make those choices. Early learning and childcare in the second column, health and food technology and practical cookery, 2 different subjects altogether. Practical cookery, formerly known as home economics, but is now called practical cookery. It's important to note in terms of progression, if cooking is your thing and you want to progress on to higher, you can't progress from practical cookery National 5 into, there is no higher practical cookery. You would have to do health and food technology in order to progress onto higher. There are 2 types of physical education, and we've introduced a new PE qualification, National 5. It is essentially the same qualification, but the focus is on different types of sports. So one caters for those who prefer to be involved in team and individual, or team sports primarily, And the second one is focuses on aesthetic and individual sports. And again, more information can be sought from the PE department to exactly what they need. Languages, we offer English, French and German. You can also, you have to study maths, but you can also study religious, moral and philosophical studies, RMBS. In sciences, you can do biology, chemistry and physics. Social subjects, social studies, geography, history, modern studies. And in technologies, business management, computing science, we can offer next year. Design and manufacture and graphic communication. One that is not there is admin and IT, and we've had to look long and hard about the subjects we can offer next year, but we can offer, at the moment, we can offer business management and computing science. There's a note at the bottom which is also important, and it is small, so I'll read it to you. It is advised that pupils continue with a breadth of subjects across the 8 curriculum areas to allow a range of opportunities for future career destinations. And you're only doing 6, so that's not going to be entirely possible. But it is important to get a spread. What we wouldn't expect to see is a young person perhaps choosing 3 social subjects, or 3 sciences, or indeed 3 expressive arts. I think it's really important, particularly with 4 options available, to give as broad a mix as you can. We take it for granted, I think, as educationists that everybody knows the pathways and understands exactly what different qualifications are on offer. And there have been a number of changes over the years, but this is the picture where we are now. For those of you sitting in the room who would think about standard grades and credit and foundation in general, and also intermediate 1 and 2, it's a much more simplified process. Now that the National 3, National 4, National 5 higher essentially is a level 6, National 6, and advanced higher is a level 7 qualification. So there is a logic to the way that that's configured. Again, just to put it in old money, National 3 would be a foundation level course, National 4 would be intermediate 1 or general, and National 5 would be credit or intermediate 2, as was, but they don't exist anymore. So these are the focus. It's important to note on the right-hand side that advanced higher and National 5, all of those contain some continuous assessment, and there's usually a final exam as well, and the proportions in terms of the percentages do vary from subject to subject, and that's something that you might need to ask. I think it's in the book that you'll be able to see, but it does vary from subject to subject. I can think that in advanced higher art, for example, there is no final exam. It's just based on portfolio and continuous assessment. It's also important to note that in National 4, National 3, there is no final exam. So it's all based on internal assessments, and that's important to note if that's the level of qualification that you're going for next year. In terms of progression, I mean, it's obvious to state it, but it's important to see it. If you mostly do National 5s in S4 next year, you would then logically progress to higher in S5, or maybe a mixture. And it's not necessarily 5 hires, it might be that you might do 3 hires and 2 more National 5s. It really depends on you as an individual. And then you would normally, but not always, move on to advanced higher. At least that's the logic. But it really does depend on attainment at each level. So it might be that you get 4 or 5 hires in S5, but you might not have the grades you need to go on to university or college. Specific grades, A's and B's, for example. So you might need to do some hires in S6, as well as an advanced hire, or no advanced hires, but that really depends. But you can also see there's progress from whatever level you start at. If you're doing predominantly National 4s, you can pick up National 5s in S5, and you can certainly progress to higher in S6. So by doing National 4s next year, you still have the opportunity to get the grades you need to move on to higher study if that's what you want to do beyond the school. So there's plenty of opportunities to get what you need. And if things don't work out for you in terms of either National 3 or no awards, again, there are progression routes in terms of moving right up to National 5 or higher by the time you leave us. But the journey doesn't end there, and I'm sure Joanne would say the same, that we're just talking about qualifications within the school, but there are other opportunities for young people as you progress into S5 and S6, in particular at college, which are not these qualifications. You've got HNCs, you've got foundation apprenticeships, you've got a variety of level 5, 6, and possibly level 7 courses that you can do. You can do part of an HNC at college now. So there are possibilities, but they are still recognised at levels 6 and 5 and 7, but they're not called National 5, 6 or 7. So there are a whole range of bewildering possibilities that start with S4. So making those choices, lots of things to think about, huge amount of things to think about really. It's quite important that you enjoy the subject. I think that's pretty much a given. Ability within the subject. You want to maximise your opportunities as a young person. You've got to balance it really. I enjoy that, but I'm not very good at it. I'm really good at that, but I'm not sure I enjoy it. It's a hard balance. At the end of the day though, if you want to progress, you need to pass. And you need to get a good grade. If you want to go into higher, you can get a pass at National 5 at A, B or C to go into higher. That is possible. But statistically, the possibility of you getting a good pass at higher after having a C at National 5 are obviously less than if you get an A or a B. It's not impossible, but you want to maximise what you get. So you have to think about what you're good at and what you enjoy and get a really good balance between them. What kind of progress you're making? I mean, you'll know, your parents will know, and your carers will know, but you'll know as young people how well you're doing in a subject, and it's important that you're honest with yourselves about how progress is going. On the 21st, you'll have a chance to talk to teachers about exactly how you're doing, so there'll be an opportunity there. We did mention this earlier on, but a breadth of curriculum. I think that's really important. The Scottish system really promotes that right until S6. Just keeping your options open, trying to find a broad range of subjects, because you may well change your mind. And most university degrees, if that's where you go, and 50% of our young people do go to university, most courses don't necessarily require a specific subject at higher or advanced time. If you're going into medicine, that might be different. But if you go into accountancy, for example, you don't need an accountancy qualification. If you go into computing, you don't necessarily need a computing higher. Universities recognise the difficulty that schools have had in running computing courses. Maths is really important to get onto a computing course in university, for example. In terms of going to study art, different kettle of fish, you really do need art qualifications. It does vary, but that's the kind of research that you presumably start to do right from there. Pitfalls, things perhaps that you shouldn't do, and these do happen every single year, and it's understandable. Young people do take, or say they want to take subjects because their pals are doing it, and that does happen. That's not necessarily a good thing, but it's understandable. You want to be with your friendship group, and that we get that. But is that good for you? Is that really where you are going to maximise your chances? If the answer is no, then you should consider it. This is about you and your choices and your future. So you really need to think about what you're good at, what you enjoy, and what you want to do in the future. And again, we understand the second point on the screen. It may be that a relationship with a particular teacher is not the most positive, or for whatever reason you didn't get on with that teacher. You don't know if it's going to happen next year. You've no idea. You're not necessarily going to have the same teacher next year. So it's important to try and put those things at the back of your mind when you're making these really important choices. When we say you feel pressured, again, addressing the young people, your parents and carers will have an opinion, your teachers will have an opinion, your pals will have an opinion, Auntie Jo will have an opinion, but at the end of the day, it's down to you. It's your choices. And you will get guidance from this forum, from your parents and carers, and from Auntie Jo, and from your pals, but you have to make the choice. You're the one who's going to have to sit these exams. You're the one who's going to have to sit for a year and do these courses. So you have to make that choice with guidance. And no subject is easy. None of them are. They're all a National 5 and National 4. There's no easy subjects, and I can guarantee that. It's just not the case that one subject is easier than another. You might find it easier because you're good at it, but you make those choices in the full knowledge that no subject is more difficult or more easy. And as I've said, you have to do the work. In terms of parents and carers, some questions for you to ponder. What does your son, daughter enjoy? What is she good at, or what is he good at? Influences in school, but also influences out of school. There may be factors to take into account in terms of part-time jobs or interests out of school that may suit those choices. And looking ahead, again, there may be young people who know what they want to do in the future, but there'll be plenty that don't. But that will influence your choices as well. And researching, there's plenty of ways to do that, and Joanne, no doubt, will talk about that in a few minutes. There's a lot of information out there that you can glean, and there are plenty of people that you can talk to get the information that you need. And I'm not just talking about these courses, I'm talking about several steps down the line, college, university. There's excellent people out there who will tell you exactly what they're looking for in terms of grades and everything else that goes with it. Lots of people to talk to. Subject teachers, you'll have that opportunity in a week's time. Guidance teachers are always available if you need that extra 15-20 minutes or a chat with the guidance teacher. We can certainly arrange that, and they'll be here on the 21st as well. All the young people will have a meeting with their guidance teacher, and it'll be in here. So at the end of the 28th and 29th of November, and we're going to do it a slightly different way. So all the houses will be in here, and we'll do it in the hall. But everybody will have a meeting with their guidance teacher to discuss their choices, which they will have made by the Monday. So the guidance teachers will have the information in front of them. Skills Development Scotland, who are here tonight, and Joanne will also be here on the 28th and 29th as well. So if you want that extra chat with Joanne Allen, you can do that. You can come along when you're about to discuss it before and after you're talking to your guidance teacher, and you can have a word with Joanne on the day. I did mention this, but in terms of entry requirements, admissions officers are amazing. They know the universities inside out. They won't be able to tell you, they'll never say that it's a given in terms of a particular set of requirements for a particular course, because it can change. It does change year on year, but they can give you a ballpark figure. And they can tell you, if you want to do accountancy in this university, then you're likely to need X, Y, and Z. But they will, again, add to that and say, at least that's what it was this year, but that might change. But they are good people to talk to. We're available tonight, but we're also available any other time as well, if you want to have a chat, and that applies to both young people and to parents and carers. And just one thing to mention, there are no university courses which require 3 sciences at National 5. Certainly, if you want to do medical-related courses, you may have to pick up 3 sciences at higher. But certainly, we would argue strongly against picking 3 National 5s in any particular curricular area. You can revisit subjects, and you can top up. So you could do 2 sciences in S5. You could do 2 sciences in S5 at higher, for example, and pick up another science in S6 to top up. And that might be sufficient for some courses, but you'd need to check whether the requirement is that you get the highs you need in the first sitting. And medicine, again, is another one of those that is the case. And you can pick up extra subjects or additional subjects in S6. Pupils are having support on an ongoing basis. We've started that process already, so there will be at least 1 lesson in PSE which involves the guidance teachers and Mrs. Allen. So there'll be opportunities to have the discussion in a smaller group. And as mentioned, on the 21st of November, you have an S3 parents evening. So this is the opposite way to the way we did it this last year, but I think this makes more sense that we're doing this now, and then you've got a chance to talk to teachers on the 21st after we've had this discussion. So these are the dates, and again, I'll make the slides available. If you want to take a picture that you can, but I did send this out. You've got a number of key dates. You should have your pathways sheet. We've got this evening, so S3 parenting on the 21st. Pathway forms have to be returned by Monday the 25th. On the 28th and 29th of the same week, you have those meetings with the guidance teacher in here, and SDS will be available, and then, as mentioned, there are discussions happening in PSE lessons. So lots and lots of discussion, lots and lots of chat, lots and lots of information, and lots to take in. Okay, I'm going to pass over to John Allen, and then I'm going to come back in a few slides' time.